a passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Jonsuntitledpod, a partner of MoshPitNation.com. This episode's guest is Ken Susi from Unearth. You might know Ken from a lot of things, whether it be any of his multiple bands, mainly Unearth. Maybe you've seen him as the guy who sells pickups. And maybe my co-host is someone that you've heard across many platforms. And maybe he tries to sell you some shit too. Mr. Daniel Terry, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. I got some VHS tapes for sale, and, it's an original Star Wars trilogy, John. It could be yours.
For the low price of?
I don't know. How much you got?
I don't like Star Wars, so you're begging up the wrong tree.
Oh, so a new adopter. Okay, well then for you, John, $3. Everybody else, $49.99.
One easy installment of $49.99?
Yes, just one easy installment, limited time offer. You actually have to call me and set it up before this podcast posts. So you figure that out.
You know what people do watch and what people do pay attention to is this new Unearth record, Extinction, which is coming out November 23rd via Century Media Records. I gotta say, it's a really fucking good record.
Heavy.
It's very heavy. As you'll kind of hear me allude to in the chat, it's a modern Unearth record, but there are signs to what the band has done previously. Like if you were a fan of stuff from the Oncoming Storm, there's stuff in here for you that you will be like, oh, there's the Unearth I fell in love with. Yeah,
the whole record, man, is kind of a barn burner. I've only gotten to get through it about once, but to me, this is not the Unearth that I remember.
No.
To be perfectly honest, like this is a whole different thing. And obviously you can tell it's Unearth. You can't be around as long as they've been around and not carve out your own sound. But it's recognizable as Unearth. But it definitely, like vocally alone, is leaps and bounds more aggressive than we've ever gotten.
So it's funny that you mentioned Trevor's vocals on this. So when listening to the record, and in particular the song Sidewinder, in listening to it, I was like, Jesus Christ, it sounds like James Hart from 18 Visions. Like it has that kind of scream that James has got. And Unearth has been around a long time, probably played shows with 18 Visions and so forth. So it wouldn't be that far out of the realm of plausibility. So I sent James a DM and I was like, dude, are you on the new Unearth? And he sent me a message back. He goes, I'm not, but I really thought about fucking with you for a minute and giving you misinformation. So when you did your interview, you were just going to be like, so it's really cool you got James Hart to do guest vocals.
That would be hilarious.
It was one of those things I ended up telling Ken that story. And he was like, well, we'd love to have him on a song if he ever really wants to do something. So I'm probably going to send James that snippet and be like, yo, so the ball's in your court. If you want to make something happen, make something happen.
Right. I mean, at that point, it has to become real.
Yes. I want it to be, so it has to be.
Exactly. I actually like tracks 6, 7, 8 in conjunction to one another. I had a good flow going on. I was carrying a bunch of heavy stuff while I was listening to it. So I was listening to heavy stuff while carrying heavy stuff. And it definitely got me through the day, man. I've only made it all the way through the album probably once, but every time I get to Sidewinder, I start over. So I've listened to probably the first 7 or 8 tracks like 6 or 7 times. I mean, I guess that's a pretty good indicator. And to be honest, that's the most I've probably listened to an Unearth record ever.
I think there's a pretty positive review for the record and how good it really is, if that's how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, dude, this is, like I said, this is a whole nother beast. I like to be fully transparent. I was not super into Unearth before hearing this, and now I'm kind of like, yeah, dude.
And I don't know how many times we can talk about how great Unearth is and how well they weave in and out of things. So how about we get to that conversation and weave into that? And we will talk to you afterwards. I'll start off before we actually kick into it, and I'll tell you this funny story. So, listening to the record, I was listening to Sidewinder, and Trevor's like vocals are a little like different than I've heard on other records at this point. And
yeah.
I legit sent a DM to James Hart, and I was like, "Dude, are you on this new Unearth, like on Sidewinder, doing like the title vocal?" And he sent me a thing back, and he goes, "I almost was gonna fuck with you and say yes, just to give you misinformation, so you would go on the record and say like, oh, it was really cool that you guys got James Hart." And he goes, "But no, I wasn't on it." And I was like, "Well, I would have, even if you didn't, I still think it would have been fucking funny, and I'm still gonna bring it up because I do find it amusing."
Yeah.
But,
Tom would love it. I would love if he did a guest spot on one of our songs. Vocalist.
Yeah. So I had the pleasure this early afternoon of talking to Ken Susi of Unearth, who have a new album, Extinction, coming out November 23rd via Century Media. How are you doing in wonderful Ocala, Florida?
Oh, it's amazing. Absolutely great. No, the weather's good. We've had rain for the past 4 days, so it's totally awesome to be out of that crap.
That's pretty much what I'm experiencing right now in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So,
yeah.
Fall is officially here.
I know. I'm not looking forward to the winter, but whatever. You gotta do what you gotta do.
So, very much like your beloved Boston sports, I was trying to think of a time when Unearth didn't put out a really good record, and, you know, I don't think I can really do that. Just like, I don't think kids nowadays understand that Boston wasn't the great sports town that it used to be.
Well, yeah, we suffered a bit. I mean, I grew up during the era of the Bruins lost the cup to the Oilers in the late 80s. So, yeah, it's been terrible all our whole lives until basically the Patriots won. So we've been really lucky, but guys my age know the heartache and the pain that go along with being a Boston sports fan. But now it's other than the Celtics, but
Hey,
yeah,
you won one in the last decade.
Yeah. So far, right now, we have just a ton of championships. So I'm super psyched.
Yeah.
Super psyched about that.
I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Warped Tour because, I was pleasantly surprised to see you guys get on the tour because if my memory serves me correct, you guys only did a small run in 2002, where you only did like basically the Midwest states. So what was it like doing the full run?
It was awesome. We always wished we got the opportunity to play that tour, but for some reason we kept getting like offered, Ozfest and Mayhem and Sounds of the Underground and all those types of tours, and those were all great and stuff. But I wish we capitalized on it a lot earlier in our career. This particular tour was unbelievable. Managed the people who ran the festival did an amazing job, took care of the bands, and it's the opposite of basically everything I heard. Prior to getting there, everyone usually says it's a really hard tour, and you can't get much help, support on the road. You know what I mean, from
Right.
management and stuff like that. But it was absolutely the opposite, and it was really fun. We had a really great time, all of us, and the shows were great too. We played our asses off, and and most days were really good, so we're really excited.
Being on a tour like Warped Tour, and I know in the last couple of years, Kevin did a really great job of putting, I don't necessarily want to call you guys legacy acts, but, bands like a Hatebreed or an Acacia Strain or things like that, like kind of heavier bands that have been around and are road dogs, basically. And to me, it wasn't a huge surprise to see you because, when I put it in that kind of a prism, it totally makes sense. But how did you go over with the crowd? Because I don't feel like that's necessarily a crowd that is maybe your demographic typically.
that's exactly the reason why we did the tour. I was actually nervous going into it that we were going to have a really uphill battle every day, playing against, with bands like, Water Parks and Issues and, like all those like definite bands that are very different than us. But it went over really well. I was pleasantly surprised. Every day there was attendance. People were getting into what we did. I think it helped that we were one of the heavier bands on the run. Like us and Every Time I Die, luckily, we came out of the same, I would say, class, when it comes to how old we are, our age and stuff like that. But it was amazing to, hang with those guys and, meet new bands like, guys from Wage War and Most White. And believe it or not, we really took well to Twisted. Yeah, they were really fun guys, and everybody on the run was really nice. I can't think of a time where a band was like, had ego or anything like that happened at all this summer. And the coolest part is that everyone hung out. I've been on tours too where everyone gets in their bus and they start hiding and stuff like that. But no, there was activities every night. It was just basically a parking lot, hangout. So it was an amazing tour. The crowd response and stuff was amazing. I think kids just like Tomas, one of the heavier bands that worked out, and we got to meet a lot of new bands like Kublai Khan and there's that band Sharptooth and stuff like that. It's just a lot of unique bands on the run that were cool.
How many games of cornhole did you win?
Buzz and I ran the table a bit, but there's obviously excellent players like. The guys from Harm's Way, Bo and James and stuff like that, and then Andy Williams and Steve from Every Time I Die, Jordan, like everybody. We spent a lot of time together playing cornhole. So, but depending on the day, it was people were like, who was hot, who was not, So
right.
It was really fun. That was a nightly occurrence for sure, and. Andy Williams knows how to bring the party. He has the professional bags. He has the professional, the boards and stuff, and he takes it super serious. So it's, I love that dude. He's hilarious.
Something that I've always kind of thought was interesting about, summertime tour, the festival circuit and so forth like that is bands who end up doing these runs, but they don't have a new record yet out. It's coming, but you ended up doing the whole Warped Tour, and I was actually expecting you guys to probably middle of it or so be like, hey, here's our new record, and that didn't happen. So was it kind of I don't recall you playing anything off of the new record on Warped Tour. I could be wrong with that, but I was going to say, was it kind of a bummer that like you probably had some of these songs ready to go and you knew they were coming and kind of maybe wanted to give them like a live debut and just be like, hey, motherfuckers, like, look what I got.
We played one song. We released a single called Incinerate for that tour to kind of promote the new record. I'm actually glad we didn't move forward and do the record, the full record and release it during that time. Summer's a really busy time. I think a lot of people are out doing things, and the last thing they're thinking of is like, oh yeah, I got to sit home and download this record. Or sometimes it's cool where people like grab a record and they drive to it all summer or whatever. But our record's getting released at a time where I think there's a lot of people starting to hibernate, at least in the Northeast and stuff like that, or Northwest, and they're looking for a good record to listen to and something to buy close to Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. So we're hoping for the best. But we did play a song, one or two songs this summer, just to test some stuff out, and it went over well. And that's why we basically put the first single out as our lead track. So people could hear it during that festival.
I know you're only not even a week into the current headlining run. How much of the new material are you playing at this point?
We're playing 4 songs, but we have, I think, like 7 or 8 out of like 10 songs. We have 8 songs down to play. Okay. So far, we focus on like 4 at the beginning of tour just to get like in a groove with them, and then we're going to rotate others in. But yeah, we this is the first time in a while that we've felt really strong about a record to where we learned the whole record before we went out on a run.
Kind of speaking to the new record, it was pretty well publicized that you had DL kind of working on you with you and Buzz for the writing sessions. What was it kind of like bringing in somebody else to kind of bounce ideas off of and so forth?
Well, DL and I, we hang out a lot. He and I are very close friends. You know, I guess the way to put this is that Buzz and I still wrote, like, we wrote separately. DL didn't have any writing credit on all the songs, but I think it ended up being like four or five of them or something like that. And but I'll tell you, like, he's amazing. Like, being from Massachusetts, being as close as we all are to each other and the scene, and you know, and that kind of thing. You know, you get 20 records in, like Buzz and I have, 20 years in, whatever, 5, 6, 7 records or whatever. Sometimes it's not that you lose focus, but you have a tendency to make the same moves, to have the same habits.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good opportunity to have like sit down with DL, show him riffs, and then write riffs in front of him or together. I mean, he's a tremendous writer. He's a great composer. And I mean, there was a million times where like I'd put together a riff and he'd be like, "Oh, come on, you always do that. Let's try something else. Let's do this." And it was very encouraging. The same stuff that like Adam D used to do, like like earlier on. Actually, the first 2 records, Adam D, didn't really help with that kind of like composition stuff, but he would throw in the great ideas that would like bring the song to another level. Because sometimes it just takes somebody that doesn't have the perspective of like being married to a song to see through the song. And so DL would just get in there with us and write parts or assist in songs or restructure things or make drums or whatever it was during the process. He was just there for it. And I'm really lucky. I think we're all really lucky to have someone like him around, in the area that was willing to do that with us. And I hope to work with him in the future. It was unbelievable. I think, Survivalist came out really cool as a song he worked on. It was like stuff like that. Sidewinder, the song that you liked, that you were talking about prior to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. But yeah, so it's funny. Like I trolled online and stuff and like making comments, and people are like, "Oh, this," and oh my god, they hired an outside writer. But it's like, no, it's not. It's like three guys that are friends in a room having chicks, writing riffs and just having laughs, and next thing you know, like a song comes out of it. And DL is super selfish, and so are we. And I mean, we're 20 years into a career, so we're like, let's write with someone else in the room. Leave your house and write in the new place. Like, it felt right, especially the fact that we were trying to get back to our roots of like what we do.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that, because in listening to the record, first of all, production-wise, and I'll get to working with Will in a minute, but it just, I don't mean to. Sometimes I feel like this is a backhanded compliment, and I definitely don't mean it to be. But there's like a sense. There's a sense of almost like a fire reburnt, and I felt it on Watches of the Crown?
Watches the Rule, yeah.
Watches the Rule, yeah. Sorry, and it's one of those things where it's like I feel like when you kind of look at every record, I feel like the band's always trying to prove something, but I feel like on this one, it's like. You're kind of talking about the band being, 20 years into the career and taking different approaches to writing the album and so forth. And it definitely comes across, because there's stuff on here where I'm like, oh shit, like I wasn't expecting that. And there's even in the song structures, like some of the blast beats and some of the stuff you guys are doing on it, like under it, even if it's just for, a couple of seconds. It's like, it's interesting to see what you guys are doing and adding new little tricks, and even some of the effects you're adding to the songs and so forth. But there's even songs on the record that kind of sound like something that for people that would have been into like the Oncoming Storm and so forth. And to me, I think that's really refreshing when you're able to kind of move forward, but still tip the hat to like what's come previously. Was that kind of a little bit of a concern? Go ahead.
No, we're in a place where this happened. Like, I mean, we put out the Oncoming Storm. It did very well. Prior to that, we had Stink the Conscience that came out. That was like us as a VFW hall band, which was like we were just struggling to be musicians and get our word out. Back in the day, we would write these riffs and things like we were trying to fuse like Iron Maiden, mixed with like Hatebreed and Crowbar and all that cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So we were trying to do all that kind of thing, and like back then, no one was doing it. So it's really, really easy writing a record. And then like sure enough, we get popular, and then a bunch of people like other bands and stuff wearing flip flops and stuff got like 10 times bigger doing what we did, and that, you know what I mean. And now we're like kind of like flip flop metalcore bands, whatever. They got much bigger at what they're doing, and I don't knock those bands at all for taking our sound and going forward with it, because it's something that we tried to do. But compared to us versus like all the other bands in our genre, the guys that we grew up with, or the guys that like kind of took our sound and went forward with it, they're also kind of making the same sounding record today.
Right.
And if you listen to like Things of Conscience, Oncoming Storm, then you go from Storm to Three in the Eyes of Fire. Those are the dramatic jumps. Like we tried our hardest to like make sure that like every record progressed differently, and we weren't like the same old sounding Unearth. Even though people would, during that time period, people were like, "Oh, this is a metalcore record," and they chalk it up. They don't know how to label it, and they just kind of call it metalcore and all that stuff.
Right.
We did take chances. If you listen to other bands, in our genre, you can't tell one record from the next.
Right.
So we got to a point where, we did a Watch as a Rule. Right? Watch as a Rule was Darkness in the Light was a record that was very, like, we wanted to, go back to that Storm period, write a really melodic record. Then Buzz and I were really feeling like that we should write a really technical record. So we put out Watch as a Rule. And this record was like, Buzz and I were just like, I'm really tired of, like, struggling on stage, like, having to be precise on every note. I want to have fun again, like when we were 20 years old on stage, and play riffs and jump around and, have a good time. And believe it or not, like, this record is, everyone says that, like, oh, we're the heaviest band ever now, and oh my God, it's so brutal. Like, that's not Unearth. Like Unearth is not going to give you some marketing crap, like, jargon that every band uses. It's like a record that sounds like we're a group of dudes, like how we were when we were a VFW Hall band. Like, this is us, like, VFW Hall band 2.0, and this is, like, where we belong, and we feel, like, fun in doing this type of stuff. And we may record, who knows, or we may stick with this a little bit, but we feel really good about this particular record, and with our reviews and people who have heard it think it's one of our best efforts. So that's all you can hope for.
No, totally, and I definitely agree with that sentiment. I think it is a really great record. Like, part of me was kind of like, fuck, I kind of wish this had come out a little bit earlier so I could have sat with this a lot more. I mean, it's already, I've had it like, 2-3 days maybe, and I'm already like, all right, this might be one of my albums of the year already. Like, it's really fucking good, like, start to finish. Like, there's dynamics in it. There's like I said, the one thing I was wondering too, and I'm hoping it's not something that's going to get said a whole bunch, but I think inevitably with you working with DL and some of the comments I've already read, I wonder if people are going to sit there and slag on it and be like, oh, it sounds like the Acacia Strain at parts. And it's like, well, I mean, fuck.
It really doesn't.
No,
because,
it doesn't. But
it doesn't. But, like, again, this all has to do with everybody just not knowing how to label stuff, and then just seeing a name or hearing. If you put, like, chocolate in someone's mouth and said chew it and shut your eyes and think of strawberry, they might taste a little bit of strawberry. So we're experiencing right now, but, like, the record was written by us, and we definitely, we wrote with DL, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, back in the day, Converge wrote a whole record with Steve Brodsky, and it's one of their best records from Cave-In. So, was everyone complaining that Steve Brodsky wrote on a Converge record? No, it was just made that Converge record awesome. They just collaborated with someone new. It was awesome. They were in between bass players and stuff, and Steve jumped in. So it's awesome. I love that. Like, I don't know what to say.
I am, you kind of touched on something I wanted to hit on, and I didn't necessarily know how I was going to get there, so it's kind of serendipitous that you sort of touched on it. In listening to a lot of podcasts, Josta podcasts, the various cast of regular metal, hard rock podcasts that are out there, something that kind of sucks, for me as a fan of bands and kind of just, like I said, the pseudo backhanded compliments of way of saying these things. I've always thought that you guys were a band's band. Bands love touring with you. Bands love your music. But the thing that I've always thought was kind of weird, and I've not really been able to ask someone who's had this said about them, is, a lot of bands will say, man, I really love Unearth, but, I don't ever feel like they give the credit that they're due. So as someone that's in a band that has that kind of said about you quite a bit, how does that make you feel? Because I feel like, a record like this is almost, and actually really any of your records really are the what I would say is like a prototype of what everyone, the benchmark really of what people should aspire to be in this genre, where it's like we're not content doing this one thing and we're pushing it as far as we can. Like, you know, there's the musicality of it, there's melody, there's all these things. We should be viewed as much as our contemporaries are, but it seems like everyone kind of in the same breath will sort of, I don't want to say put you down, but it's always like that kind of thing, like, yeah, there's Unearth though, like, you know, it just kind of sucks that like they aren't where we all feel like and know they should be at.
It's because it's exactly what I said earlier. Like, what happened is that we were the only like where we got our sound was by like playing shows with Shadowfall and Hatebreed like in the same weekend, right? We'd have to play with like bands like Turmoil or All War, or all these super heavy hardcore bands, or these really melodic, you know, bands like Shadowfall or Killswitch or whatever. And, you know, our sound came of that. We were trying to figure out to make a set list, right? To play. So if we played on Friday with Hatebreed, we could play another set list with Shadowfall the next day, and it was all the same record. So we started these things into our music till the point where it made us like the sound of Unearth. And like we even took the stance of like, I mean, I was hanging out with Tosin Bossi recently at our clinics, and he was like, dude, he's like, I think you guys are the first metal band to put sweeps over breakdowns. And I was like, maybe, I don't know, you know, but I was like, oh, that was a really nice compliment he gave us, you know, to Tosin, you know, someone who's that awesome at guitar, to say that.
Yeah.
And all I can say is that, like, yeah, basically what happened is people just took our sound at that time period because we got really big really quickly, and there was no one else doing it, and there was like carbon copies, like just printing themselves out, you know, like there was a million bands. I mean, bands that came after us, but really good bands too, like what did I say, August Burns Red is really good, Parkway Drive's really good, but you know, they got 10 times bigger than us because they were a little bit younger. We were already at it for like 6 years, and they put out some really good material, and it just caught on. It was like the second wave. And let's not forget, like, Deathcore had the same thing. There was Job for a Cowboy, you know, like, remember that band? And they were insane, but how many, now there's like bands like Whitechapel and like, you know, all these other really great bands that spawned off that got bigger. I think that's just kind of, we were just kind of that. That kind of happened to us a little bit, but it doesn't take away the fact that like we were one of the first to make, you know, the modern metalcore, like, you know, once you get breakdowns and sweeps and you got like Iron Maiden parts, if used in songs, I mean, that kind of, some of that influence came from us. I'm not saying we're the first to do it by any means. Like I was saying it today, I did a interview for Guitar Player magazine, and I said, like, I personally think Caven was the first band to do that.
Right.
Steve Brodsky was awesome. Like, they had like breakdowns and melodic riffs over beautiful beds of octaves and overdubs and, you know, and just singing, and it was like everything that like Poison the Well and all these other bands in Zayo and we're trying to do mixed with Converge. It was the perfect, it was metalcore at its finest. But we, you know, we were that. Some of that happened to us, and you know what? We are on Earth. We're happy to have our career. We're lucky for everything that we've ever achieved, and I'm okay with it. You know, hopefully time will tell and people will take notice, but I think we're a really cool band. I think we did something really great. I think we continue to still make great records that sound different, and that's a lot. You know, a lot of other bands can't say that.
I agree with all of that. You know, I kind of want to talk about working with Will Putney, who I feel like has become the new heavy metal producer, the new Adam D. Like, it seems like every so often there's a new producer who kind of puts their stamp on what it is, whether it was Ross Robinson in the early days. I could even say Steve Ebbets could probably be in there as well. And Adam D obviously had a big hand in, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s, you know, quote unquote metalcore sound. But I think Will Putney's, you know, putting out records that are crushingly heavy but have a clarity to them that I've not really heard from anybody else, like the attention to detail that he's got. So, I mean, what was it like working with Will on this record?
Will's a phenomenal producer. I enjoyed working with him. I don't want you to, you know, I know you, but there's a lot of great producers that, like, you know, that kind of bless the metal scene. I mean, for one, Andy Sneap.
Yeah.
He obviously, Mark Lewis is, we worked on a number of records with him. He's unbelievable. Like, I mean, his mixing is so good. Like, I can't speak highly enough about him. But yeah, no, Will was like, I love Will because a lot of times when I do producing and stuff, I always feel like I made a record with Madball, and I remember saying to myself, I know what this band because I kind of grew up listening to them, or I know what they're about. And I got the same vibe from Will. I just like from day one, I just felt like Will was like mature, right? He was like on point with what he wanted us to do. He was like great in the studio. When we went in and like took the songs that Buzz and I wrote, or Buzz and I and DL wrote, back to the studio, he had like great like insight as to how to take it to the next level, adding parts or changing parts or whatever it is, or just song structure in general. So he's really, really, really good. And I think the reason why you feel that way about his producing too is because he's almost like a scout as well. He's very different. He's old school when it comes to like producing. Like a lot of old school producers like Rick Rubin and stuff like that used to seek bands and want to work with them. And Will's the same way. I think he's very proactive about like what he chooses to work on and what he thinks is cool. And I think he's struck gold a bunch of times because he has like he's just in tune. And not to mention, like, I mean, he's technically in Fit for an Autopsy. I mean, he does all the writing and stuff. And I think he does most of the writing with Pat or whatever it is. I don't know their arrangements, but he's a phenomenal musician. Like he could just turn out material. So being able to be in a room with him, I know everyone's had a great time. Working with him, Trevor, Buzz, myself, like it was really easy, and I would love to work with him again and get the opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I was really. I mean, I shouldn't be because I mean, even if you look at like Will's other band, End, I mean, it's just a disgustingly brutal band.
Yeah, he just knows what he's doing. He just knows what he's doing, and he's got a really good attitude about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like he's just one of those guys that kind of knows what he likes to hear, knows what he wants to hear, and there's times where he knows he's like, you know what, this isn't working, and he's not married to anything. And I think all good producers can remove themselves from a specific thing if there's a problem. The good producers can do that,
Right. I wanted to have you on for a while to talk about something else, so I'll kind of, in wrapping up in the last couple of minutes, get to some of that. So, you've worked with, Dave. I saw you working with Dave Pino again, doing your next music video, which looks interesting. Are any of the Muppets that he does going to be in it?
Dave didn't help with the video, but his brother and I,
Frank?
Dave, and Frank, and we're basically family. I mean, I spend all my time with him and his family, and vice versa. So Dave lives in Texas. He plays with Andy WK.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Dennison. Frank Pino has like a media kind of station, like a place where we make like videos and rock videos and fun, cool projects, and it's like he has this whole media studio called Punch Dance.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim Dennison runs the video portion of it with Anthony Jarvis. Those two guys are extremely talented. They've done videos for Kill Switch, and they work with McFarlane and Pesci. A lot of cases like making like Machine Head videos and stuff. So now they're obviously making their own videos. Really talented group of people. A lot of really talented people in Boston. But this particular media studio is like the place where we made our current video. Is the place where like I do all my shedding for like I have like a grunge band called Swivel, and we rehearse there. And I do a lot of media stuff there. I do a lot of photography on the side, and I work out of that studio. And those guys, it was just a matter of time until I wanted them to make a Unearth video, and sure enough, they made two. And I mean, the video that I did with my grunge band Swivel for Clueless, you can see it on YouTube. It's awesome, and we did it in like 4 hours. It was like nothing, and then they edited it. And it was like up on the internet before so quickly. So we really needed to work. We really wanted to work with a really good video team, and this was perfect for us. And they were local, and it was easy. But Dave's one of my best friends. Frankie is I'm godparent to one of his kids, so we're our two families are very, 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 very close.
Yeah, it was fun talking with Dave. He was like, well, you seem to know a lot about our Boston scene and Ken and all those guys. I was like, well, it's the internet and reading magazines. But
I gotta say, like, I'll go on record and say Dave Pino is probably one of the best guitar players I know, and it's crazy that he plays an Andrew and he doesn't do much shredding, but like he doesn't put himself in front of the camera and play, but he can play circles around like 80% of or 90% of the people that I know.
He's insanely talented. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he like if you ask him to play, he sounds like Vito Bratta meets Eddie Van Halen meets. Like we were somewhere and Paul Gilbert was there at Ibanez once when we were checking one of my guitars, and Paul Gilbert was like, "Oh, you were in the band Damone at one point," and Dave was like literally drooling that he even knew the name, and then he's like, "Yeah, I kind of wrote a lick based off of one of your lick kind of things," and I literally thought Dave was gonna faint. So that's how good of a guitar player he is. Where Paul Gilbert's like, "Yeah, I remember you. You're like, I remember that lick. It was sick," and Dave's like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, Dave was surprised that I had seen Damone way back in the day, and he was like, "Really?" He's like, "That band barely existed," and I was like, "I saw you guys, dude." But,
yeah, well, the band that he's known for in the area too is Waltham, and Waltham was they should have been huge.
Well, speaking of bands, kind of, that, and this is what I was gonna get into. So, first of all, I've been a fan of Burn Your Wishes for a long fucking time. I even bothered you at a show for the song, the 7-inch split you ended up doing. And I gotta say, I'm really kind of bummed that nothing really ever became of that, because according to your MySpace, you're still recording. So
yeah, we're still recording. No, you know what happened was Unearth and Killswitch like got so big, and Adam got so busy that it was a kind of a thing that I was doing, and then Adam was like, "Hey, can I do this with you?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we made a record, and a lot of it at the time, because he's a producer, fell on him. But then he got super busy with doing records, and then tour, then record, then tour. It just really became a thing that never happened because of that. And, Adam and I both decided too that it's like, maybe we could have did something really cool, but you know what I mean? Like together, but I don't know. It just wasn't in the cards. Sometimes you just got to have that, like, two people got to really want it. And, at one point I really wanted to do something like that, but I think he was also, just so busy that it's like, you want to do something out of love, not out of like, I have to do it, and, I didn't want that. So it was cool. We made like a little video, we made a little EP, and we called it a day. So, So since then, I decided like to I found a tape in my house from like one of my first girlfriends ever. It was a whole tape. And I really, remembered how much I really liked grunge and stuff. So I started a band with Noelle from that band Damone, actually, that was, signed to like 2 or 3 majors, and like she's really fantastic, and we're looking for a label now, but we want to put out our release, but we have like 12 songs, and they're like straight up like Nirvana meets Veruga Salt meets like all that stuff. So Mark Lewis is actually mixing it. So if that ever comes out, it'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, and then, speaking further to another band that seemingly had all the potential and just kind of went away, USA. I was so fucking pumped on that band because it was like everything I wanted. It's like got really great hooks and great vocals. Like Frank does a great job on it, and it seemed like that was going to be, like a really good side band for you to kind of showcase some of that aspect of things.
Yeah, it got labeled as pop punk or some shit, it was more crooner music with loud guitars. And actually Atlantic took notice into us, and they flew us out there twice to go do this like showcase in this really like fucking like big room at SIR in LA, and then like we literally flew there once. Dino Cazares let us use his jam space from Fear Factory, and then the next thing you know, like this rep from Atlanta comes out. He's like, "We want to sign you guys." Blah 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 blah. We flew back home, and then we're like, "Cool, this is awesome. We may get signed by Atlantic." And then the next thing you know, they fly us back out there. We're in this big room at SIR, and literally, what's that band? Maroon 5 was like next door rehearsing for some tour, It was like when they were doing their makeover, where Adam Levine, like they're teaching the guys how to dress and stuff way back, and getting them back together or whatever. And literally, this guy shows up. He sits down in front of us. Mind you, it's like a huge concert stage with 3 chairs in front of us. This guy literally was having a baby that day, so he sat down with his cell phone, staring at his cell phone the whole time. We played like 3 songs, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, I pass. This is, I don't like it." and we're like, "Oh, cool, awesome, thanks, dude." And he like ran out the door, and it was like, "Yeah, I wasted my time. That was fun." So that was funny to see that side of the music industry. I had to see something like that in my lifetime, and I'm glad I actually got to experience it. The guy just was having one of those days, and didn't want to sign us. So, so that's kind of like we played a few shows, and then we just kind of decided to like, it was more of a studio record than anything, and we just moved on. We may do like a reunion show. We had some fun doing it.
Yeah, I was trying real hard to book you guys out here in the Midwest, and just wasn't really panning out because just it wasn't happening. No, and then
you can blame the guy from Atlantic Records.
I will get a hold of him and blame him. Actually, I probably will ask you afterward to send me those tracks because I don't think they're on iTunes anymore, so I can't seemingly find any of it.
They're on Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, okay. And
yeah, go to Bandcamp, USA, and Swivel. We have the one song up there too, but the record will hopefully come up soon.
And it's more of a Frank question. Why the fuck did you change the verse? The verse lyrics to Michelle.
Oh, the verse. That's where in walks Dave. Dave's like one of those guys. Like we had a verse, and he was just like, something's not right. Something's not right. Something's not right. Dave and I wrote most of the material. I literally got too drunk at NAMM, and I missed my flight, and I ended up living in LA with like $10 in my pocket, and for a week on Dave's like couch, and we decided to write the USA record, and we got all the way to the point where we had the lyrics and the music and all that stuff, and Frank was having a really hard time believing in the lyric at the time, because, sometimes when you don't write something, it's hard to sing about it, sing about stuff, and, it's really in your face kind of stuff. So at one point, Dave walked in like a month or two later and was just like, he's like, there's something wrong with the flow of that verse. And Dave, being a great producer like he is, was just stepped in and we all wrote something, and next thing you know, we all looked up and were like, yeah, that's it. And that was it. But literally, that song was cool. It was like a girl that we all knew. And that song was just, the whole catalog was about girls that we knew.
Right. That,
like, we were paying homage to. Like, every girl likes a song written about them. And we found it really easy to write songs about other people and being selfless with our music. And it told a great story. So, it just so happens there's this girl named Michelle that we all kind of like thought was she's a cool chick. She partied with us every weekend kind of thing. And, she used to just like to drink and have fun, and so we decided to write a song about her.
It's very Eddie Money of you guys.
Yeah. Well, if you ever go to the Hampton Beach Casino in Massachusetts, Frank and I will be at every Eddie Money show that exists. So
shaking your tits.
Any of those guys, we go and check it out. Yeah, yeah.
And then, I was going to get into a little bit about Fishman, but I think you probably have talked a lot about that already.
Well, just to add to it, Fishman's been amazing to me. Larry Fishman invented this like really great technology that no one has for guitar pickups, and I decided to join up with him because I was, I still had a lot of time home, and sometimes when you're not making a record or not touring or something like that, you feel kind of like, I should do something, be proactive, but it's only once in a lifetime that you find something that's so revolutionary and so amazing that you like want to be a part of it. So I actually asked Larry to, work with him. And I told him he didn't have to pay me, but for some reason he still pays me and he still asks me to keep coming to work. So it's actually cool. But Larry Fishman is one of the greatest people that I've ever met in my life. I've learned so much from him, and I can't express how grateful I am to have met him and to be working with him. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it seemingly went from just hearing about it word of mouth because of obviously Dave and you and a handful of other people that I see like on the internet, to then it's like, oh, Steph Carpenter is using them. Oh my God, everybody's fucking using them. Everybody on ESP is using them. And it's like, okay, like shit. So much to the point where a friend of mine was like, oh, I need new pickups in this Ibanez or whatever he was using. I was like, I'm sure Ken can probably explain what pickups out of the Fishmans you should use.
I know. I literally, I couldn't, when I became their artist relations rep, I couldn't even give away a set of pickups, and I knew how good they were, so I kept pressing, the people that were on my roster, Satchel from Steel Panther, and all these guys that I've been friends with over the years, and sure enough, they try them, and then they like them, and then people are using the gear. It was just so, it was like, I took the company, with Larry and the help of the team and stuff from, making, literally we're, selling a few $100,000, dollars worth a year to well into the millions now. And it's unbelievable to see what a little bit of drive and a little bit of talk can do. I helped spark the business through my cell phone and my contacts, and it's amazing. Sometimes you're surprised at those types of things that you can do, when you least expect it. You're like, I know all these cool people, and let's see if I can help. And next thing you know, you're in a place where this thing's popping off. Like, you know, my friends mixed with Larry's like technology and being a part of their team now, it's just a win-win-win situation.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good indicator of how you have been able to be successful as long as you have in Unearth and really any of the bands or endeavors you've been a part of, though.
Yeah, I'd like to consider myself a Renaissance man. No, I'm just kidding. I could do anything. If you want me to play the flute, I can play the flute. I'll figure it out.
And lastly, you know, have you plug your socials, and when you're done with plugging the socials, pick a song to end the episode out to. So where can people find you?
Sure. People can find me on Facebook, which I never check, just Ken Susi. But Instagram, I'm always pretty proactive on, so it's at Ken Susi. If you are interested in photography, portraits, landscape, places that I've been, at Ken Susi Photography on Instagram. Basically, you can find me on YouTube. Same thing, Ken Susi. Basically, go to Fishman, their site. I'm all over that. And as far as a song to plug, do you want it to be one of ours or somebody else's?
Can be whatever. As long as I can find it on the internet.
All right, so play Crossbear from Caven, because I mentioned Caven like twice on this podcast. So.
Awesome. I missed the days where you were bukaken on everything.
I know. It's kind of weird when you walk into an office where people have been working there for like 20 and 30 years, and like you just got hired there and you're trying to make new friends, and they're like, hey, I saw your profile and your name Bukaken. Explain. You know? And I'm like, I don't know.
So
it's actually pretty funny. Like, Larry Fishman was actually funny, too. There's some YouTube videos of me drunk talking garbage in, like, the mid-2000s, and I made a comment about, you know, something with a vagina and a horse and, like, a hand gesture and stuff. And like, literally, like, 4 years of working in the Fishman, there was one night where I was like, Larry and I were working late, and we were just talking about how I got hired there, and I made a comment like, I'm like, you never really checked me for resume. I'm like, I have a college degree and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I'm surprised you just kind of like took me in. And he's like, I'm like, you barely knew me. And then like, he stuck out his hand and made that, like, I'm feeding the horse vagina thing. And I was like, oh my God, you saw that? And he just started laughing. He's like, yeah, I know what you're about. And he started laughing. So yeah, these are the good times. The internet's one hell of a thing.
I ended up getting, speaking of bukakis, I ended up getting a guest solely because somehow I referenced bukkake, and I was like, you know, it's really weird how this fetish, where it came from initially, you know, the ancient Japanese thing of basically, it was basically, it would either, you know, cause a woman such shame that she would kill herself, or basically for the transgressions she past, usually cheating on your spouse or whatever, that basically, like, if this act happened, either if you didn't kill yourself, then all is forgiven, which is fucked up, because basically you're more or less cheating with everybody. But hey, we're not going to get into that. But it was like one of those things where I go, and then, you know, 200, 400, 500 years, however long it is, now it's a fetish, and it's like, that's just kind of how the world works.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how the whole thing is. I just always like the word bukkake because you can just slap an N on it, and then that's my last, you know, my first name right there at the end. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Bukkaken sounds right. But
I think it fits. I was expecting when you released your signature guitar to be called the bukkake.
Oh my God, I should do that. Yeah, I'll just put out a white guitar. It'd be great.
Oh, Snow White, but different. Well, Ken, thank you again for taking the time to do this conversation, and hopefully it wasn't too bad for you. And you guys can be seen. I think you got another 2 weeks, 3 weeks left of this tour with Fit for an Autopsy and all them.
Yeah, if you need me, I'll be in the back of a van for 8 hours staring out the window doing nothing.
I'm sure you'll be working.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That and watching, you know, whatever I can. YouTube. Mainly. Awesome, brother. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you very much.
Take it easy.
So that was my conversation with Ken Susi of Unearth. Dan, you couldn't be there, but you did get to hear this conversation. What did you think of it?
You know, I thought it was decidedly below average. No, I'm kidding. No, it was a good chat, man. And, you know, something that I was telling you on text earlier, it's like really refreshing to hear somebody talk about their band like they're proud of it.
It really is.
Like, it is. It sounds like such a simple thing. Like, of course, somebody that's been in a band for this long and kind of been there since the inception, is going to be very very proud of it or whatever. But like, you don't really hear that. Like, so many people just, they don't down their band, but it's always like played off like it's no big deal. And so it's kind of cool to hear like, dude, no, I love this band. I think we're great.
Well, how much of that do you think is the fact that for a while, you would have people who would be like, oh, my band is awesome, this, that, and the other, and you'd be like, wow, you're really fucking pretentious.
Yeah, but it didn't come off like that. Like,
no,
when you
not
listen to him talk, he sounds like an excited kid that's just happy to be in a band.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said in the intro, I mean, having seen Unearth over 10 years ago, like for the first time, it's like, that's what that band gives you when you see them, though.
Right. Yeah, it's all energy for sure. I've seen Unearth a couple of times on different tours, and definitely always, I used to always say, like, from a stage perspective, they're incredible, But like I said, man, I'm pretty much on board with this new album. So it looks like they're actually rolling into town here in St. Louis on November 16th. Well, this Unearth show, man, that's going to be packed. It looks like Fit for an Autopsy there, the Agony Scene, and Traitors. So
yeah, I checked out a little bit
of. Get myself out there.
Checked out a little bit of Traitors. Was like, ah, shit, it's a stacked bill. Traitors was the only band I hadn't really heard of, so I checked out a couple songs. And I was like, fuck, that'd be one of those shows where I'm like, I guess that venue is getting all my drinking money. I'm probably gonna spend some money on merch. Like,
right.
It's one of those. I mean, it's a good problem to have where you enjoy a whole night of music.
I definitely need to get a new hoodie, so I'm gonna be really. It's gonna be really hard three-way tie between Fit for an Autopsy, Unearth, and the Agony Scene, because the Agony Scene is so old school for me that like it'd be hard not to get that hoodie.
Well, at least on Earth you'll be able to read.
That's true. Well, Fit for an Autopsy, yeah. I mean, it's just like, did somebody puke on your all over your hoodie there? Yeah, man, it was me. That show was rad.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping to check the guys some point in this album cycle. At some point, I think, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that, and something I don't think a lot of people really, I don't think I've really heard it discussed. I think people don't realize that, once a record's done and done being recorded, that a band pretty much only will probably play maybe 4 songs off of the album. So the fact that Ken had made it kind of a point, like, yeah, we've learned 8 of the, I think it's 10 or 11 songs, that they can switch in and out. It's like, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, you don't know when you're gonna, like, what you're gonna get night in or night out off the new record. And to me, like, that's another thing. And to me, this is the band I always fucking comment on. This band, like, Dan's favorite band is AO. Mine's Every Time I Die. No big fucking whoop. I say it all the time. Right. But I mean, I think that's the thing about bands like Every Time I Die and bands from that era, is those bands just learn how to play everything, so to keep it fun and fresh for you and for them. And I feel like you don't see that really with bands anymore. It's like, here's your set list, and it's going to be the same thing night in and night out. The speeches are going to be well rehearsed by the end of the set, by the end of the tour. Like, it just is what it is. And I don't necessarily fault any bands for doing that, because, if you've ever been with a band or gotten to see a tour a handful of times, or seen a tour, the start of a tour, and then seen the end of the tour, it's like, sometimes, like, that sweet spot is, like, the last week or so of the tour, because, like I just said, everything's so dialed in that that's where the fun can happen, because you're not having to, like, look at your guitar, you're not having to, like, think about things, you kind of go on autopilot mode. And to me, sometimes, like, those are some of the best shows to go see, because, like I said, the band is just firing on all cylinders. However, knowing that you can't go to Setlist FM and see what you're going to see, like, that's pretty exciting for me as a fan. And to hear that Ken and them are, most of the way through the record, have it all down to where they can pull it out at any point, like, that's exciting to hear as a fan. Like, all these songs rip. Like, so if you're telling me, like, potentially I could hear Sidewinder or hear some of these other songs that haven't been released yet, like, I'm all about it.
Yeah, it definitely brings back that feeling, that exciting feeling of a show. It's like, oh my god, what's next? Oh my god, what's next? Or they'll play some song where you're like, well, I don't know how they're going to follow that.
So if you would like to keep up with Ken, you can find him on Facebook and Instagram simply at Ken Susi, no longer at Bukaken. I did just see, actually, though, in looking up his Twitter, that the old Twitter Bukaken Ken Susi page is still able to be found. but sadly you're not going to be seeing anything updated or tweeted at all. And that was kind of a fun story to end the episode out with, was Larry Fishman of Fishman Fluence Pickups and so forth, of him basically making that jerk off horse.
Dude, you never cease to amaze me, John.
Well, I mean, that wasn't my story, but
I know, but the stuff that you remember. I mean, how could you not? But
I mean, come on, let's all give credit to Ken here. Bukakin is a pretty good fucking, social media handle.
It's kind of the best one, and
it's
to be
one
honest,
of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just like how nonchalant he is, it's Bukaki with N at the end.
Get it?
Yeah, Bukakin. And then
you went into a whole history lesson.
Well, I mean, there might be people who, I mean, I'm not going to tell you to Google Bukaki, but
right. I mean, it's educational.
So, and then the Seaman White guitar. Guitar.
Oh, yeah. He's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just release a white guitar.
But anyway, if you would like to keep up with Ken, again, you can find him on Facebook and Instagram simply at his name, Ken Susi, all one word. If you would like to find his photography and follow that, he actually does some really cool photography. You can find him at Ken Susi Photography. And if you'd like to keep up with the band, basically you can find them everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Unearth Official. And if you would like to keep up with our show partner, Moshpit Nation, you can find them at moshpitnation.com. Facebook is Moshpit Nation West, capital MRI. Twitter and Instagram are simply Moshpit Nation. And if you would like to keep up with our show's sponsor, The Bean Bastard, you can find them at thebeanbastard.com. Get you some delicious coffee. There's a brand new blend. Had some kiwi in it and some stone fruit, I believe is what it was. Sounded very interesting. So I might have to head over there and pick up a bag myself of that and try that. But you can also find The Bean Bastard at Facebook and Instagram at simply The Bean Bastard. And Dan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook under Daniel Terry. You can find me on Twitter at DiscussMetalDan, and you can find my other podcast at DiscussMetal.com.
And if you would like to keep up with all things going on here with the podcast, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at JonsuntitledPodcast. Tweet at us at JonsuntitledPod, and email us at JonsuntitledPod@gmail.com. And so without further ado, we're going to end this out to Crossbearer by Cave-In, potentially the kings of metalcore, the godfathers of metalcore.
One of. Absolutely.
And we will talk to you next time, where we'll have Kevin from Old Wounds on.